Hurricanes are the most powerful storms on Earth. With such force of personality, they are the only natural disasters we actually give names to.
Hurricane releases this latent heat energy from the ocean, the equivalent of 4 Hiroshima-type bombs every minute.
Hurricane Andrew would be the most destructive storm of the century. Friday, August 21st, 1992. Miami, basking in its usual sunshine, barely registers the first reports of a tropical storm brewing far out in the Atlantic.
We really thought Andrew was going to just kind of, be a blip on the screen and go away.
There has not been a major hurricane in the Miami area in decades. Few residents have ever experienced one. Now, out of the blue Atlantic and heading relentlessly toward them would come Hurricane Andrew. At the Hurricane Research Division laboratories, Stanley Goldenberg is watching Tropical Storm Andrew closely all day Friday.
I looked at the last forecast before I left work, track forecast, and one of the models which we trusted for the first time was starting to curve the storm towards Florida.
You said there's something here?
Tropical storms in the Atlantic are monitored at the National Hurricane Center in Miami. Specialists analyze information from satellites, Doppler radar, and instruments actually flown into a storm. On Saturday, August 22nd, Dr. Frank Marks of the Hurricane Research Division flies into Andrew.
We did not expect a hurricane, let alone a pretty good hurricane. And it was already pretty strong. I mean, it already had like 110 knot winds when we got there on the 22nd, which was a surprise. The second thing that, of course, was the big shocker was I knew it was going to hit Florida.
Tropical Storm Andrew is upgraded to a hurricane. It is now 615 miles east of Florida. Saturday evening, as the sun sets over Miami.
This is a major hurricane. It poses a very dangerous threat across the...
It's essentially a direct hit on Miami.
Emergency officials anxiously await the forecast. Their evacuation plans will depend on the category or force of the storm.
Category 4 is about 130 miles per hour, capable of doing major damage to almost any building. And it's about as bad as it could get.
The last Category 4 storm to head for the East Coast had been Hurricane Hugo in 1989. It struck South Carolina with winds of 132 miles per hour, and its devastation was legendary. Beyond damage from high winds, emergency officials in Florida are concerned about storm surge, the height above normal to which tides would rise with the storm. The stronger the hurricane, the greater the surge and the danger that people could be trapped and drowned.
Saturday evening is when it really began to become a very strong and scary storm. And we began to tell the emergency management community that they must prepare for a Category 4 hurricane.
To which my response was, are you sure? Do you realize what this means in terms of our evacuating numbers?
An evacuation order is in effect.
Orders go out overnight to start the evacuation first thing Sunday morning.
You are ordered to evacuate the area.
So we ended up evacuating over 500,000 people.
The eye of the hurricane is expected to cross the Miami area somewhere around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Sunday morning, August 23rd. The evacuation begins and panic descends.
With Matt, they're crazy.
One old man got his batteries grabbed out of his hand. People need to calm down.
I'm scared of being killed. The kids are scared.
We're out of here. That's it.
By 11 a.m., Andrew is 330 miles east of Miami with sustained winds of 145 miles per hour. It's expected to reach Miami early Monday morning.
Hi, sweetie.
Way better.
Hi, you guys.
Dan Roby grew up in Florida. At first, he hadn't been too concerned about reports of the approaching storm.
I think a lot of people in Miami felt the same way. This is going to be another hurricane, it's going to be trees down and a big mess.
But on Sunday, he packs up his family and leaves his home in the Country Walk development. It isn't in an evacuation zone, but Roby feels they'll be better off with friends upstate in Orlando.
I remembered the story of the three little pigs and the big bad wolf that huffed and puffed and blew down the house made out of sticks.
Coming back from Orlando is the Suarez family. They are on their way home to South Dade from a vacation in Disney World. They haven't seen the news reports.
We stopped to get some gas, and the lady asked us, where are you guys heading to? And I said, Miami. She says, you're kidding me, everybody's leaving Miami and you're heading to Miami? She says, there's a hurricane coming in. So we rushed, and when we got here, we realized that people were really taking things serious, and it wasn't like other times. So we went to get wood, and all the wood was gone to cover our home.
Their house is near the water in an evacuation zone.
And we were told to evacuate the area. And so we did. I wish I would have known that was the last time I was seeing my home. Yeah, and all our stuff.
By 5 p.m., the center of the hurricane is just 240 miles east of Miami and is already hitting the Bahamas.
It became a very strong Category 4 storm, sustained winds probably 155 miles an hour, and was bearing down on the Bahamas, just battering the Bahamas. In Miami at that time, it was a clear day.
Here, having a boy makes you feel like a father, and having a girl makes you feel like a daddy, right?
And late Sunday afternoon, Stan Goldenberg's wife, Barbara, gives birth to their daughter, Pearl.
I was torn as a meteorologist, just interested in any hurricane out there. As a father, having the birth of my fourth child, turned out to be my first girl, and very occupied with that, and then realizing this incredible hurricane was possibly bearing down on us.
Mommy sees her baby for the first time.
Feeling his wife and newborn would be safe in the hospital, Stan Goldenberg goes home to South Dade to be with his 3 sons.
I would just think of the boys at home, I would just get choked up, and I just knew I had to go home.
Goldenberg's colleague, technician Mike Shoemaker, also heads south.
I decided to stay at my mother's house in Naranja Lakes, about 2 miles outside west of Homestead Air Force Base.
At the Homestead Air Force Base, pilots fly their F-16s out of harm's way. They have no weapons to throw against a hurricane. Sunday evening, as Andrew gets closer, TV weathercaster Brian Norcross is on the air, warning people of the danger.
We were on the air continuously making statements like, this is going to be the worst natural disaster in the history of the United States. It is going to happen in Dade County tonight.
Parents with children 3 years old or younger.
As thousands of Miami residents gather in shelters, Susie Suarez, her husband, and 4 children evacuate to a friend's home in the South Dade suburb of Cutler Ridge.
At first it was kind of fun. I was pregnant and this was middle of summer and it was hot, and when the wind started coming in it was like, oh, this is wonderful.
By 11 p.m. Sunday, the leading edge of the hurricane is just 50 miles off the Florida coast. Andrew's fast approaching winds begin to be felt.
The only thing strange was like there was no birds or animals. It's like they all had left and there was no sound in the air, which really struck us as something like nature knew something was coming. And then all of a sudden things didn't feel right and the wind really started to pick up. And I looked at my girlfriend, I said, I think it's time for us to go in.
By 2 a.m., Monday, August 24th, Hurricane Andrew's center is just 60 miles east of Miami. The winds intensify.
Jacob Goldenberg, sleeping soundly.
His children are sleeping, but Stan Goldenberg stays up with his sister and brother-in-law and restlessly records the scene.
You can hear it, see it. When this other stuff picks up, we're going to start seeing broken trees and stuff. So,
maybe about 2 or 3, the winds were picking up to probably hurricane force, and just got stronger and stronger. So I started waking everybody up and getting them in a safer place in the hallway.
Winds outside, I think, are at least 100, 110 miles an hour.
You can think of the hurricane as an alignment of maybe 100,000 thunderstorms. So all the things that you get with thunderstorms, you get in a hurricane. You get the wind gusts, you get the thunder and lightning. In some cases, you get tornadoes.
The thunderstorms act in concert and create a ring around the center, which is called the eye. The winds around the ring, the eye wall of a hurricane, are the strongest. As the force of the winds grows stronger, Susie Suarez tries to protect her children.
The wind started coming so fast and so loud. We hurried to the hallway and we put the kids in between us so that in case they were frightened, we were able to, grab them fast. So when it started getting really rough, we put the mattresses kind of like a tent on top of us and the children in the middle.
But for the Goldenbergs, the Suarezes, and the Shoemakers, there is no safe place. They are directly in the path of the fiercest winds of the storm, and the hurricane's full power is about to descend on them all.
Never forget the sound. The front picture window just exploding in. And then, as that window went, then the sliding glass door in the back went, and we basically had the hurricane just begin to roar through the house.
And the roof went, and we realized that part of the roof had gone. It was like an explosion. That fast, and it was gone. And rain started pouring in, and we were sitting in water. And the children started to cry. And they kept saying, we're gonna die, we're gonna die.
Mike Shoemaker tries to protect his mother as her condo comes apart.
That's when I told my mother to get into the bathroom. And I lay down on top of her, and it was only moments later when the entire roof of the house was just ripped off. You could hear the hurricane straps actually snapping. And They just pop like rubber bands.
You need to stay in that enclosed room there.
Brian Norcross is simulcasting on the television and radio, and he is the only one still on the air. The other stations can no longer broadcast.
And we were able to receive calls at the television station, people that were in the core of the storm. So we knew that houses were coming apart. People actually called asking for advice about whether they should move from the bedroom to the bathroom while part of the roof had already come off.
At 5 o'clock in the morning, the eye of the storm passes over Homestead, Florida.
When the eye wall hit, it was as if someone took a gear and just revved everything right up.
And I turned my face to look at my husband, and I looked at the wall behind him, and it was breathing. This was a concrete wall that was literally, it was like rubber, just breathing. The doors were like paper, just waving. It was like waves. And I yelled, Alex, 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 the door. And all of a sudden, just something went bang, and half the house was gone. The electricity was gone, the roof was gone, kitchen was gone, the bathroom was gone, the bedroom was gone. And we could see turquoise lights everywhere, and we thought it was lightning, but it turned out to be the flashes of the wires as they were coming down. That was terrifying because now we were left in the dark.
My mother kept asking, when's the eye coming? I said, soon, keep your head down. And I was actually able to roll over and look up, and the entire wall of the bathroom was waving in the breeze. And I could look up inside the eye wall, and I could actually see the clouds rolling and boiling because the eye wall was just passing over.
At about 5:30 in the morning, Susie Suarez and her 3-year-old son pass out as the high winds suck air from the house.
When I came to, I had the strangest peaceful feeling. And I looked at my daughter and I said, it's over.
We're still getting some rain, still getting strong gusts of wind here, but for Miami, the worst is clearly over. The last word we had from
my husband, who has been in the Army all his life and has seen, he's in Special Forces, has seen all kinds of things. He had his uniform on, he was ready to go and help. And we had our medical kit and everything ready to go and help our neighbors and things. He opened the only door left in the house, which was the front door, and his face went white as a sheet. And he quickly closed the door and he looked at me and he said, please don't come out.
I went out and looked out the front door, and I just told my mom I'm sorry. And she asked why. You got no house. It's gone.
Hurricanes are the most powerful storms on Earth.
A hurricane releases the equivalent of 4 Hiroshima-type bombs every minute. During one day, it releases enough energy to meet the electrical needs of the entire United States for 6 months. It's the greatest storm on Earth.
Through the first 60-odd years of this century, hurricanes came often and with formidable consequences. Galveston, Texas, the year 1900, 6,000 dead. There was no warning system then, No evacuations from deadly storm surge, no way out. 1938, Long Island, New York, and parts of Rhode Island. Category 3, about 600 killed. Severe hurricanes are rare that far north, and the people there never knew what hit them. Hurricane Carla, Texas, in 1961. Category 4, 46 dead, and more than $400 million in damages. 2 Category 5 hurricanes with sustained winds over 155 miles per hour have struck the U.S. In 1935, the Labor Day hurricane swamped the Florida Keys, killing 400. And in 1969, Hurricane Camille blasted into the Mississippi Gulf Coast, leaving 256 dead. In the 1970s and 80s, there was a lull in severe hurricane activity until Hurricane Hugo pounded South Carolina in 1989. It had been the costliest storm ever, with more than $7 billion in damage. But Hugo had struck a predominantly rural area. Andrew grazed a major city. It was already the most destructive storm in American history. By 8 a.m. Monday morning, Andrew has left Dade County, but its force is far from finished. It sweeps a westward path across Florida into the Gulf of Mexico. In Miami, people emerge from shelter to assess the damage. In the city proper, there is a sense of relief. Aside from power, window and water damage, and downed trees, things are not so bad. It is in downtown Miami where most of the media has huddled to cover the storm. No one has yet been south of the city.
We became aware that we had not heard from Homestead and Cutler Ridge and places south of South Miami. And it took us actually a couple of hours to realize that something very bad had happened, and it took longer than that to realize the full dynamics of what had happened in South Dade, because no one really imagined it.
As police reports come in and television crews in helicopters and on land make their way south of the city, the scenes of destruction come into focus but are difficult to comprehend. It is simply too big for the small screen to convey. In marinas, pleasure yachts are tossed about like so many plastic toy boats. At Tamiami Airport, aircraft are crumpled up and thrown aside as if they were made of paper. But worst of all, of course, is what has happened to the places where people live. Many people in South Dade County climb out of their ruined homes in shock.
Believe me, to hell with everything. All the money is not worth a damn thing to me. My life is more important than my wife, everybody else.
In Cutler Ridge, Susie Suarez looks out on her world for the first time since the storm began.
When we opened the door, it felt like we had been at war. There was nothing that we recognized, nothing. It was like we were in another planet. And I kept looking and I kept saying to my husband, where am I? Where am I? And I was lost. Everything else I could handle except the feeling that I didn't belong anywhere. that everything that I was gone.
This is now the morning after. This is Stan at 8:30 in the morning. We have been through a night.
Stan Goldenberg has lost his house to the storm.
The roof lifted off, and as you can see, we have no house.
The phones are out, and he can't reach his wife in the hospital.
Hurricane Andrew roared across southern Florida this morning with winds that gusted to 165 miles per hour. At least 2 people are confirmed dead, and up to 1 million people are without power at this hour. The latest satellite pictures shows Andrew...
She watches the devastation on television.
When she saw it, she didn't think anything could be living. I mean, nobody was moving. There was nothing there, and she started to just get in despair. She just couldn't eat. She couldn't nurse. She had just delivered a baby.
Mike Shoemaker and his mother had fled to a condo across the street when the eye came over. This is all that is left of his mother's home in the morning.
And we were stuck there for 3 days, just trying to dig out, keep people fed, watered.
3 people died here in the Naranja Lakes condominiums. Andrew's immediate death toll was 15 in Florida. The Robies try to make their way home from Orlando to Country Walk.
The most amazing thing about the destruction to me was that we had lived in our neighborhood for 5 years, and we couldn't find the street that we lived on.
This is the street that we're supposed to turn down? Yes. Oh my God, look at this, Danny.
It's all right. It's okay. We got us. We got you and me and Brittany.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
It looked like a bomb had hit the neighborhood. We got up on the roof and we just took pictures.
It looked like the area had been hit by a nuclear blast. We lost our telephone system. We lost our power grid. We lost water. We lost sewage. It was almost primeval. We really had nothing.
By Monday afternoon, Hurricane Andrew is on a course that seems aimed toward Louisiana, almost 500 miles away. In Louisiana, people see the first devastating pictures of what Andrew has done in Florida.
This is where I used to live.
Homestead, where almost no one has a home anymore, would become the unsettling symbol of all this misery. The Air Force Base is leveled, and 90% of the buildings in town lay in ruins. It had never been a wealthy community. Its trailer parks had been filled with retired military people who settled there to be close to the PX and free medical care at the base. There were migrant workers who worked as pickers in the fruit groves. There were working class people who made things, and middle class people who owned small businesses that catered to the base or everyone else. Overnight, they have all become as poor and helpless as the displaced citizens of any war-torn third world country. They are Hurricane Andrew's refugees in place here in America.